Hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking and Barry here, back again, and as you can see from behind me, I have a very special video planned for all of you today. We will be discussing the 4 great weapons of none other than the Ant Facts. Facts about ants and other insects, but mostly ants. After we go through our ant facts, apparently. Okay, you know what? That's on me. That's on me. I did say that was going to be a regular segment on the show. So, all right, let's see ant facts. Okay, here we go. This is a good one. So this ant right here, fossilized in amber, is over 99 million years old. That's right. This thing existed back during the Cretaceous period when dinos were stomping around and is known as the Hell Ant. Well, at least that's the nickname people have given it because it sounds so freaking awesome. Its actual fancy scientific name is the Hydameer mechanae. I don't know. Hell ant. That has a lot more impact, right? This thing was actually found fossilized in the amber, about ready to cut the damn head off of an ancient cockroach, okay? And then it got stuck in tree sap, and, well, you know what happens from there. You know what the really crazy thing is? People talk about every now and then it would be cool to go back in time and witness the dinosaurs. If you were to do that, of course it would be very dangerous, but I don't think you would have to worry about getting swallowed by a T-Rex or stepped on by a brachiosaur. Yeah, those would be concerns, but I think the number one thing that would probably end you would be the insect and spider species that existed back then. Think about it. This ant and other types of insects existed when dinosaurs were a threat. The poisons and venoms in these things were probably way more potent than they are now. We would have no protection against them, so you'd be there like, wow, this is so cool. Look at this ancient world. Look at all those dinosaurs. What just bit my ankle? And then just you'd be down, right? So, yeah, that's your very cheery ant fact for the day. Ant facts! Okay, so now can we get to the actual plot of the video? I don't even know what it was again. Oh, yeah, the weapons. All right, let me do that again. The 4 great weapons of none other than the Yonko. That's right. Whitebeard's mighty Naginata, Muro Kumo Giri. And then we have Kaido's mighty Kanabo. Kana-chan. That's right. It's Kana-chan, his Kanabo. Then we have, alright, so it's not a bicorn hat like Napoleon, it's a tricorn hat. Apparently, bicorn hats are way hard to get, even in costume stores, so if you can find one, good on you. But, Big Mom's mighty bicorn tricorn hat, Napoleon! And then we have Shanks's mighty sword, Griffin. This was the closest thing I had to Griffin. Everything else I own are like katanas. This was the closest thing I had to the saber cutlass with the handguard. So this will be the stand-in for Griffin today. And then we have Blackbeard as well, but so far right now in the story, Blackbeard does not brandish a signature weapon. We see him having the pistols in his belt, and he uses those from time to time, but mostly he just focuses on the Yami Yami no Mi and the Gura Gura no Mi. Back during when he was a member of the Whitebeard crew, he did have a signature weapon, these Wolverine claw things he strapped to his hand, and that's how he fought. We also saw that when he was a little kid, when he first joined up with Whitebeard's crew, and that was the weapon that he actually used to cause the scar on Shanks's face, but he hasn't used that weapon since in the present storyline, when he was the captain of his own crew. We've never seen him break those things out. I'm assuming he still has them, and maybe he only puts them on when he's getting into a serious battle, and then when he got the Yami Yami no Mi and the Gura Gura, it's he really didn't have a use for them anymore, but he might bust them out later on in the story, who knows. But for right now, these are kind of the 4 signature weapons that all of the Yonko wield when they go into battle, no matter what. Whitebeard's always going to have his Naginata, Kaido's always going to have his Kanabo, Shanks Griffin, and then Big Mom's going to have Napoleon. Now, the reason I'm doing this video right now, though, is because in the last chapter of One Piece, chapter 1014, so there's a little bit of spoilers here, there was that really epic scene at the end when Kaido bursts into the attic, charges up Conquerors, takes out his Kanabo, 2 hands, and he brings the smackdown right on Kinemon's head. And Kinemon just pulls up his 2 swords in a vain attempt to stop him. I don't think it will. And then that's where the chapter ends, with that epic clash right there with the Conqueror's hockey literally pouring off the page of the manga, okay? I missed this, and a lot of people were quick to correct it and say, I can't believe you didn't see this, Tekking. But during that scene, Kaido's Kanabo was actually visibly cracked. So if you were like me and you completely missed it, because that was a pretty crazy scene with everything going on, I didn't even notice that, man. But yeah, go back and look at the Kanabo. There is a crack right there at the top, right when he brings it down, and you kind of see the top of his Kanabo, right? Now, there are 2 possibilities on how this could have happened. The first possibility, it's not very likely. In fact, I really don't think this is how it worked, but I'll throw it in there anyway because some people are talking about it. I suppose Luffy, with his slapdash Conqueror's Haki that he pulled together and combined with his Ryuo, might have been able to crack Kaido's Kanabo. Like, he launched an attack like Gamu Gamu no, dragon killing pistol or something, and then Kaido maybe raised up his Kanabo to block it, and then Luffy cracked it. Or maybe it was like Kaido using an attack at the same time Luffy was using an attack. Kaido's Kanabo hit him. That was the thing that knocked him over Onigashima, but it did crack Kaido's weapon in the process. But that's not very likely. I think the way more likely thing to happen is, well, look at the scene. The Kanabo cracked when he brought it down on Kinemon. So, stands to reason, it seems pretty obvious to me, Kinemon was the one that cracked the Kanabo. Do not give Luffy all the credit here, okay? By the way, go back and look at that scene. Kaido burst into that attic. He looked pretty serious, did he not? He was up there shooting the shit with Luffy. He was talking to him and the other members of the Worst Generation like, Woro, 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 this is starting to get fun. Woro, 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 leave it to me, Lin Lin. Woro, 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 you think you could fight me, kid? Yeah, Kaido was all business when he strolled in to fight against Kinemon, and he busted out the Conquerors right away. He used two hands on his Kanabo, and he brought that down, alright? He knew Kinemon was the real threat, so Kinemon's last act was charging up his own Conqueror's Haki, and that's what caused the crack on Kaido's Kanabo. Absolutely, right? Okay, so on the off chance that didn't happen, I'm assuming it was Luffy that cracked the Kanabo, alright? So, because I couldn't do just an entire video on that one scene that I missed, I mean, I probably could, but, just to have a little bit more stuff to discuss, we'll do videos on all of the weapons of the Yonko. And since we're already talking about the Kanabo, let's just start with that. Fun fact, did you know the literal translation of Kanabo is just metal stick? Yeah, that's literally what it just translates out to Japanese, metal stick. So this is mostly made of wood, so I don't even know if that's, like, the proper thing to call this thing. But anyway, yeah, I thought it would have, like, a much more, like, Oni staff or something like that, because in Japanese myth and lore, Onis are the ones that typically wield these things, and given Kaido's appearance, it makes sense. There was a chapter a little while ago that was titled, it's like giving a dragon wings, and sort of like the idea is, like, a dragon is already terrifying, but giving it wings makes it even more scary. Likewise, there's a similar phrase in Japan, like giving a Kanabo to an Oni. So an Oni is already this demon that's wicked powerful on its own, but giving it a Kanabo is essentially making it invincible, okay? And so there's also, going along with that logic, there's also another saying where if an Oni were to lose the Kanabo, they would lose their strength. Now, I'm not going to say that Kaido, if he lost his Kanabo, if it just cracked and broke apart, Kaido would be helpless or anything. It's like, no! Kana-chan! Why? And he just, he lost all of his power and he just couldn't go on. That was the source of my power this whole time. And he just turns into like a scrawny little dude. He's just like, no! I'm pretty sure Kaido's punches would hurt just as much without the Kanabo, alright? But it would take an advantage off of him. He probably wouldn't be able to use his Thunder Bagura or all those other really strong moves he had before. Maybe it's something like because he's such a master of the Conqueror's Haki technique, he's only really good at channeling the Conquerors into his Kanabo, Maybe it's like one of those things like the Kokuto, the black blades. Kaido's Kanabo is black, so we just assumed that was the type of metal it was made out of. Probably the strongest metal in all of One Piece, but maybe it might be like the black blades. It's the same basic process. You channel so much Haki into it, it eventually permanently changes the shade of the weapon, okay? So in this case, Kaido's using this Kanabo. He's so used to channeling Conquerors into it, if it were to shatter and break apart, it might kind of throw him off of his game, where he might try to use Conquerors with his fist, but he's not as adept at doing that because he's been channeling it into his Kanabo for so many years, alright? So if that thing shatters, it'll definitely be a blow to Kaido, fighting against Luffy and the others, okay? But he wouldn't just be knocked out of the fight if you just managed to get rid of that. But it's a good start. He could still turn into a dragon, but it would be a pretty good start, okay? So yeah, most notably, he's the only member of the Yonko that does not use a bladed weapon, even if you include Blackbeard's, Wolverine claws there, because Shanks and Big Mom both use swords, Whitebeard had a Naginata, which is a blade, and then you just had Kaido and his Kanabo, because that's all he needs. Although, they're kind of like blunt here on mine, but Kaido's does have like spikes coming out of it. Yamato's actually looks a lot more like this, where it's more of a blunt end with the metal rivets or screws or whatever that are popping out of it. I think these things were mainly used as cavalry weapons, right? Because if you just look at this thing right here, this thing is kind of like, it's disproportionate with with the weight. Like, swinging this thing around wouldn't be very effective in combat. Maybe if somebody was a little stronger than me, they can do it a little better. But, like, wielding it with one hand is kind of clumsy. Kind of feels like you can, like, snap your wrist if you're not careful enough. So riding around on horseback with this thing, you know, galloping down the battlefield and just smacking somebody in the helmet, they're gonna go down. You're gonna cave their skull in with this damn thing. I think there were also other variations, and I think much similar to Yamato's, where the handle was a lot longer. So it was like kind of the length of a naginata, kind of a polearm weapon, where you would grip onto it so you have a lot more like momentum to get, and it's easier to, like, you know, twirl it and like move it around and stuff, if it's like a longer kind of Kanabo rather than like this short one. So I think this one would be used on like horseback or some such, okay? So that's a really cool weapon, and it fits Kaido and everything like that. Now, is it going to shatter? Well, anime logic dictates that if there's a crack in a weapon, that yeah, it is eventually going to shatter. So I would say 100% get ready for that scene. It sucks that I missed it, but there's going to be a moment where Luffy's probably going to get back up, and he's going to fight against Kaido, and he's going to use an attack again. We're probably going to get a flashback to the moment when they clashed and the crack actually happened. We're probably going to see that, and then Kaido's going to be like, ugh, that brat cracked my Kanabo. Maybe he does have some potential. And then Luffy comes back, goes into Gear 4th, you know, King Kong gun with Conqueror's Haki or whatever. Bam! And there's gonna be a scene where, you know, maybe Kaido's like, oh, I need to block this. Boom! And then, like, the Kanabo shatters into a million pieces. It just explodes. And then Kaido gets knocked back, and he's like, ugh. That was a birthday present from Captain Rocks, you asshole! You know, and then he gets really mad. He was really attached to the Kanabo, which he's an Oni, so that makes sense, right? So yeah, that's Kaido's Kanabo. It's gonna crack at some point and break apart into a million pieces, so get used to it while you see it, right? Moving on next, I already did do a video about this because I you know, modified this thing. I bought the bush axe at a store and I painted it myself and then turned it to make it closely resemble Murakumo Giri as much as possible. The design of the sea snake isn't that great, but you know, I'm pretty proud of this, okay? It's not much, but it took me some time to get this done, alright? So yeah, I would just say go check out that video about that. But of course, this was Whitebeard's mighty weapon. You know, Whitebeard was a pretty big guy, although not as big as Big Mom or Kaido. I think if you're going by the size of the Yonko, it goes, Big Mom is the largest because she's like just below like giant size, and then Kaido should be smaller than her, although there are some certain versions or, you know, like size comparisons where they're about the same height, and then there's others where they're not, and then you have Whitebeard, and then you have Shanks and Blackbeard that are the shortest, and then of course Kaido can turn into a giant dragon, which I guess technically makes him the largest out of all of them, but just in his regular form, I don't think he's quite as big as Big Mom is, okay? And so yeah, because of Whitebeard's size, he uses a large naginata polearm weapon. He channels his Gura Gura powers into it, or rather he used to. He died with it in his hands, and you know, Marco and Shanks and everybody buried Ace and Whitebeard together on Sphinx Island with the naginata Murakumo Giri serving as the grave marker. I've said this plenty of times before, but just leaving that thing there is kind of dangerous for anybody just to wander on the island and steal it, although it might be just so damn heavy and powerful, like, you know, no random grave robber would be able to pull that thing out. It would be so freaking heavy that Whitebeard was just twirling it around like it was nothing. It's like Excalibur or something, pulling it out of the stone, or, you know, so much of Whitebeard's haki and his willpower is channeled in Murakumo Giri. Anybody that dares touch it would just be like, I am not worthy. Their hands would just disintegrate into ash upon touching it. It'd be like in Bleach when you get too close to Sosuke eyes and your body just atomizes immediately. Probably something like that, totally. Edward Weevil also wields a naginata very similar to Murakumo Giri, but it is a different weapon. This one, as far as we know, is still on the island. Marco was protecting it, but he left and went to Wano now, so it's just kind of there next to Ace's grave, so if Blackbeard were to show up and take it, he might be able to. I'm not really sure, but hopefully it'll stay in its final resting place forever, okay? So then we have Griffin. I'll talk about this next. I made a video about Griffin as well. Also kind of made a video about Napoleon. So this video is mainly on the Kanabo, but we can go through the other weapons as well. And so Griffin is Shanks's saber. I would say it's the same weapon that he had when he was a kid. I think that one had a red guard, and this one that he uses right now has a green guard. Although that could be, answered simply by him just like replacing the wrappings that go around the handle or whatever. It did seem like he used a saber when he was a kid, so it would make sense that if he did use another weapon later, it would also be a saber. I'm pretty damn sure it's a Saijo Owazumono grade sword. Whitebeard's Murakumo Giri is also a Saijo, so that would make sense. And there was also the theory that it could have been Roger's sword because Roger gave, Shanks his straw hat. Maybe Roger also gave him his sword. Seeing the flashback and everything with Odin, it seems like no, that was not the case. Roger did have a different blade. I'm under the idea that right before he left, we didn't see it in the manga, but he gave his sword over to Rayleigh. Because I feel like Roger felt like he didn't need it anymore, because he was going to the South Blue to be with Rouge and raise his son. Well, he tried to raise his son, but it didn't really work out too well there. I don't think he would have wanted to just have it get taken by the Marines and put up as like a mantle or something like that over a Marine's fireplace or something. He would have either, wanted somebody else to have it or I guess be buried with it, but he clearly wasn't. We actually don't even know what happened to Roger's body. But anyway, I'm getting off topic with that. That's another topic for another day. But yeah, Shanks' Griffin, very impressive sword, a long sword. He has to learn how to use it with only one arm because, of course, he lost his other one, with the bet he made on Luffy and everything like that. But don't take... I feel like Kid might have underestimated Shanks for that reason, okay? I feel like a lot of people might. Like everybody in the world knows that Shanks is a Yonko, but then you actually meet the guy and you can see that he's missing an arm. And so that probably gives you a false sense of like, oh, they call him a Yonko, but he probably has maybe his crew do most of the fighting. He's only got one arm. He can't possibly fight. Oh, and he uses a sword? Oh, this is going to be easy. I have two arms. I feel like Kid probably made that mistake, and, yeah, that's why there's two people with red hair that have only one arm in this story right now. So yeah, that's probably like one of Shanks's big things you do not bring up. Like I can imagine Kid approaching Shanks and being like, you're red-haired Shanks, I'm Eustace Captain Kidd. Let's do this, let's brawl. And then you have all of the red-hair pirates and Shanks is there and he's like, all right, Kid. I'll give you, I guess he can't do air quotes. He's like, all right, Kid, I'll fight you, let's do this, come on. And so the rest of the crew, like Ben Beckman and Lucky Roo and Yasop, they all get up ready to go. And then Kid had to just say one insult too many, or he insulted the thing you just don't do. And he's just like, yeah, bring it on, give me all you can with your one arm. At that point, Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, Yasop, all of the red-haired pirates, they were like Rockstar, they were all like, sheathing their swords, putting their guns away, like, all right, Captain, you got this. And Shanks, no visible change from Shanks. No visible change. He didn't give them an order. He didn't change his facial expression. It's like the second anybody mentions the arm, they all just leave. Because they know what's going to happen next is going to be a goddamn bloodbath, and they don't, it's going to be a splash zone, let's get out of here. And so Kid's like, oh, you don't even need the help of your, and then that's all it is. Gathers up all of his stuff, Punk Gibson, and then Shanks just Soru's right past him or whatever, hockeys up his blade and just, all right, guys, let's get some meat. Party on! And then freaking Kid just, he's just missing it out. How dare you? And then, like, Killer and everybody have to drag him back on the freaking ship and just, yeah, I'm gonna get him. You are losing a lot of blood, all right? So, yeah, you don't mess with Shanks and Griffin. You don't insult him. You don't do that. And then moving on, we finally have Napoleon, which, of course, is Big Mom's sword, which is also a hat, which is also a homie that can turn into a sword, which is also a hat. All right. Also, fun thing, it's not like every single time Big Mom uses the sword, it's a different type, but she's cycled through like 3 or 4 different ones. It was a long sword at one point. It was like a Roman, like Gladys blade at one point. It was a cutlass at one point. It was a blade that had like a curve like a cutlass, but it also had some like jagged edges on the back of it. It was a long sword with cognac where it makes that giant sword. It's like on fire, so it's a blazing long longsword. So it really seems like the metal blade that comes out of Napoleon is malleable, you know, like he can change it to suit whatever Big Mom's needs are in that one particular instance. You know, there's a limit to it. I mean, I'm sure he can't make like a sword the size of like a continent or anything like that. You know, a giant like mountain splitter sword. I'm sure there's a limit. Probably the largest it could make it was when it was the longsword cognac and like slicing up the Sunny, or they tried to slice up the Sunny. That was probably the limit there. But there's a lot of applications to this, and she also uses her Ikoku sovereignty, you know, the Lance of Elbaf and everything. So this is, of course, her main weapon. I still question exactly how does it work. You know, was it originally a hat that she turned into a homie and then a sword? I guess it could not have eaten the... Well, no, because Funkfried was a sword that ate the elephant fruit. I guess in theory there could be a sword fruit out there. But yeah, I think it's maybe more likely that Big Mom just had a really cool sword. Maybe her days during the Rocks crew or whatever, she had a really epic sword. And then using her powers, she combined the sword with a hat and made a hat sword homie. And that's just one of the things that she can do, right? And she just made Prometheus out of a fireball and Zeus out of a thundercloud. But she can kind of like mix and match exactly how the weapons look or whatever. Not exactly sure how it was created, but of course it has a lot of applications. And Napoleon is still around. We saw it combined with Hera and Prometheus a few chapters ago to make the freaking Maser cannon, the freaking Godzilla death laser beam cannon thing. So yeah, pretty deadly. And we see Kid is now fighting Big Mom, so we're gonna see some cool stuff there. Exactly how maybe it's like it can adjust for like more close range combat or like a distance or whatever. At any rate, it's a very terrifying sword that has a face and can spit fire out of it. So yeah, I'm wondering if the fire isn't just because of Prometheus. If Napoleon wanted to, could also like spit fireballs out of itself. Probably for Napoleon. I mean, probably for Prometheus, that's how it gets the power, because otherwise that would be pretty ridiculous that it was a sword and a hat and it could summon elements at will. You know, she just like raises up Napoleon. I have the power, mama, and it just gets struck down or whatever. Although maybe she still could do that, because it was mentioned that Zeus didn't really cooperate with Prometheus and Napoleon very well, so they could never really pull off combination attacks. But now that they have Hera, they can pull them off. So we had the combination attack with Napoleon, Hera, and Prometheus, but now it would be cool to see a combination of like Napoleon and Hera getting like a lightning attack together, or Napoleon and Prometheus using a fireball attack, which is basically cognac, but maybe like shooting fireballs from the blade or some such. Then we just have Blackbeard's, you know, Wolverine claws, which he ever does bust those things out again. He'll probably have hockey added on those, or maybe not even hockey, just like, oh, think about it this way. This would be really cool if Blackbeard combined those claws with his Yami Yami no Mi, and he could like, you know, like Black, now Black Vortex is already a name, you know, Black Rip or something like that, like Black Tear or some name, and he like literally rips the fabric of reality using the Yami Yami no Mi with the claws. And it might have a similar effect as Black Whirlpool where it like sucks you in, but that would just be a cool like idea, you know. It's like Xiaolin Showdown with the golden tiger claws that like slice space apart. Maybe he could do something like that. Also the Gura Gura no Mi. So when Whitebeard used the Gura Gura no Mi, it was very much like, you know, the cracks, like cracks in a window. Whenever he slammed the air, like the cracks appeared. Maybe with Blackbeard it's a little different, where it's more focused like a slashing motion with the Gura Gura no Mi. So he slashes the air, creates those like tiger claws, and then that causes the air to ripple in a similar way to the Gura Gura. Just maybe the shockwave is a little different because of the mechanism he's using, okay? So yeah, I can see that. I can see Blackbeard going up against Luffy near the end of the story. Blackbeard gets up and he's just like, Zeha, Straw Hat, you think you can face me? And then, you know, he takes out, from behind him, he's got his like updated claws, like they're made out of a really durable metal. That would actually work perfectly for Blackbeard, to have a weapon that's like around here, just regular metal, but then the tips of the claws are like Sea Prism. I guess considering he has the Yami Yami no Mi and that turns off Devil Fruit powers, I guess he wouldn't need Sea Prism, but on top of it negating Devil Fruit powers, it's just like a ridiculously powerful substance. It's like the strongest in all of the world of One Piece, right? So having Sea Prism tipped claws would be pretty useful even without the taking away the Devil Fruit powers ability. So yeah, so those are the Yonko weapons. Then there's also Luffy, who is the fifth emperor, but of course we know Luffy doesn't weapon. He's used swords from time to time on rare instances, including the Nidai Katetsu and everything, but we all know Luffy, all he needs is some air. Air and some bones and some muscle and some moxie, and he's set to go. Yeah. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry I forgot about the crack in Kaido's Kanabo. I guess we'll just call it Kana-chan from now on. So yeah, there's that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking and Barry, signing out. Ha!